Welcome to this presentation entitled Unlocking the Secret Scroll. The story is about a copper scroll which was discovered among the other Dead Sea Scrolls in 1952. It caused a sensation because the scroll described over 60 places where huge quantities of gold and silver treasures were secretly hidden. Many archaeological explorations were organized, but no treasures were ever found. There has been a major development because new research has shown the numbers paraded as talents and cubits on the copper scroll were encoded tables of astronomy. So profoundly sacred was the celestial knowledge that it was sealed with the autograph of Yahweh. How the copper scroll 3Q15 was decoded. What was between two sets of four numbers on the copper scroll was as dynamic as the apple that fell on Newton's head. There were plus signs between the numbers. They prompted of additions, introduced mathematical checksums, which were outlined in the Talmud, led to entering numbers onto a spreadsheet with a surprising effect, revealed groups of numbers formed by Greek letters and also by spurs which had extra treasure at 7 sites. Several totals of numbers in those groups compared to the ages of the patriarchs in Genesis chapter 5. In that way, those checksum totals identified missing numbers on eroded parts of the copper and paved the way to uncover the celestial archive. Important. All of the numbers in the tables in this presentation were in sequence. Numbers on the scrolls were neutral and could represent days or years. Now there's the tabular display of the restored copper scroll. And the most important items are the numbers, which are outlined in yellow, which were presented as cubits and treasures. The Greek letters were here. There were 7 sets of Greek letters, and there was Greek loanwords. There was also 7 spurs, and they were formed by extra treasures at some of the sites, as you can see there, and further down the scroll. Now, in red was the numbers that were identified by the checksums, there and there. And we'll move on to that. Now, there's the 7 sets of Greek letters, and look how they form the numbers into groups. For instance, with Methuselah at 969. Now, the totals of the numbers would not have added up to 969 without the number 32, which was identified as the missing number, and was confirmed by Lamech at 777 and Set at 912. See 32, 32, and again with Enos at 32. And it was the same with 14 down here. It was confirmed here by 14, and with 14 with Canaan and 14 with Adam. So we therefore knew the values of the missing numbers, and that changed the whole script of the copper scroll. Now there's the big picture of the checksums. And the reason for showing this big picture is there was 5 totals with the ages of Lamech at 777 on the scroll. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the reason why will materialize later. Now, it seemed relevant how Isaiah wrote about the secret scroll and later wrote, "Cast away coverings of defiling gold and silver ornaments. Write it in a table for the time to come forever and ever." As advised by Isaiah, the coverings with the gold and silver treasures on the copper scroll were cast aside and the numbers entered onto tables, and the results revealed periods of time forever and ever, as you will soon see. The timetable formula of 777 days to forecast the future. An equation involving 6 numbers was detected on rows 11 to 13, and there's the equation, and the total was 6209. The evidence indicates 6209 represented days and converted to 17 years using solar year of 365.242 days. Also, evidence presents 6209 days as 8 times 777 days, and it involved intercalary days. There's the 8 times 777. The equation was the blueprint to forecast the future in lots of 777 days, and it developed into a timetable with 21 periods, all with intercalary dates to synchronize the 777-day method with the solar year periods. Now, there in green are some of those 21 periods, and in solar years, and the the respective intercalary days are shown there, down along there. Now, here's a snapshot of the intercalary days for the solar year periods, and they're between the Greek letters. There's the intercalary days there, one module each, there in the beginning. And their totals are down along here. And these ones, three required two modules, and their totals were down here. Now, here is the timetable of periods, and they match up with the intercalary days, as you can see. Now, also, there were 6 periods of the time periods on the first columns of the scroll, and they're listed there. Now, there was a reference to a crucifixion. The translator John Allegro had managed to find reference to a crucifixion on the copper scroll as follows: in the sepulchre of the son of Sleep, the crucified or hanged. This statement seemed totally out of place, yet it had undertones of Psalm 22 about a crucifixion, which some Christians see as a prediction relating to Jesus. They have pierced my hands and my feet. Now, strangely, there was a cross on the copper scroll. It was formed by those 5 totals of 777, all down the scroll. And then here with the equation with the 8 times 777, which was in the exact position to form the beam of a cross. And there was the totals of the number of periods, which we just identified in the previous slide. And they all form the shape of a cross. Tables with the planets on the copper scroll. The orbits of the planets in days are well known, but the planets also have long-time cycles in years. And there are the planets Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, and there's the long-time periods. 3 periods with 46 years for Mercury, 8 years for Venus, and 344 years for Jupiter are found on a Babylonian tablet dating to the 4th century BCE. Now, in the next slide, the orbits are in dark green, and their cycles are in light green in the spreadsheet. Now, there's the orbits, for instance, of Mercury. 88 days. Its long-term cycle there 46 years, and its long-term cycle of 7 years, all down the scroll. There's Venus, the orbit of Venus, its long-term cycle of 777 years, and its long-term cycle of 8 years, all down the scroll. There's the other planets, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and of course there's the solar and lunar years. And they follow the same pattern as with Mercury and Venus. The autograph of Yahweh on the copper scroll. There were 4 displays that resembled the 4 original pictorial images with Paleo-Hebrew letters Yod, He, Wa, and He that spell the name of Yahweh, reading from right to left. The Greek letters and spurs with extra treasures shaped the tables into pictorial images reminiscent of hieroglyphics. The imprint of Enoch were on those spurs. Now, there's the first, what was a table, was formed into a pictorial image with the 3 outstretched arms. And there's the modular version showing the total of 777 years. And look how it looks like the Paleo-Hebrew letter He. There is the next table, formed by 3 spurs, which total came to 807, which was the second age of Set. Now, notice those spurs. They have the total of the numbers in it, 65, which is the first age of Enoch. The multiplication of those 3 numbers was Enoch's 364-day calendar. And here's 300, the second age of Enoch. So Enoch played a major role in shaping the letters, the Paleo-Hebrew letters. There's the modular version, and look how it looks like the Paleo-Hebrew letter He. There's 3 times 777, which I've expressed as years. And those between the Greek letters and spurs. There's the modular version, and it looks like the Paleo-Hebrew letter Wa. And finally, there's the table with the spurs, and the total of 1653 as years was 777 days by 777 times. And there's the modular version, and look how it looks like the Paleo-Hebrew letter Yod. Now, there are the 4 Paleo-Hebrew letters on the copper scroll where they were positioned. Y, H, W, H. There's the sources for the investigation on the copper scroll, and I'll let you browse through that yourself. It was a miraculous how the scribes devised and encoded the rocket science layers of celestial knowledge on the copper scroll. Without the checksums, there would be no timetable, no cross, no tables of astronomy, and no letters with YHWH. The visionaries preserved the knowledge by etching the data on endurable copper using the common Mishnaic language of the people. The treasures were a shrewd tactic to inveigle excited imaginations into protecting the copper scroll. Did the prophets visualize the celestial knowledge as the theoretical architecture of a mystical heaven? The autograph of Yahweh and the image of a cross on the copper scroll created a supernatural halo to amplify that outlook. I have outlined how the seals on the copper scroll were opened, but you haven't heard the half of it. The other half, with the duplicate inventory, is in my book, Live Forever in Time, Opening the Seven Seals of the Secret Scroll. I am gifting this book, Live Forever in Time, to all of you, and it's free to download from my website, 7biblewonders.com. Thank you very much for bearing with me, and the video must end now, and I'll close off.